Madam Clerk, can you take the roll, please?
Yes, thank you. President Alvarado,
Here.
Vice President Seta,
Yes.
Director Weiner,
Here.
Director Stanley, we'll come back to Director Stanley. Director Cepeda,
Here.
thank you. And do we have Director Stanley? I do not see Director Stanley, but Mr. President, we do have a quorum.
Okay. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance or a moment of silence. I believe, rather than do the Pledge of Allegiance, I want to do a moment of silence because there's been a lot of suffering, and I myself was affected by that in the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, we lost a good friend and a family member. So I'd just like to do a quick moment of silence. Thank you. Okay. Before we begin the calendar tonight, I want the general manager to introduce the two new members of the district team, and they're joining us tonight. Lisa?
Yes, thank you, President Alvarado. So I am happy to introduce our new district clerk, Brenda Martinez, who you just met a moment ago during roll call. And Brenda is joining us. She was the board secretary most recently for the Peralta Community College District. So we welcome Brenda to her first meeting. And also here at her first meeting is Claire Collins with Hanson Bridget, our new general counsel, and also assisting her is, and on the call is Nicole Witt, who is her deputy. So you might see Nicole at some of our meetings interchangeably with Claire when Claire is not. So thank you. We welcome them all to the district.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome you both. Wish you great success. Next item on the agenda, please.
Next item on the agenda is item 2, approval of the agenda.
Okay. What is the will of the body?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Second, please. Can I have a second? Thank you.
Excuse me, President Alvarado, Director Stanley's working to get on. Can we pause for, she would like to pause for 1 moment while she's getting on with the audio, if you would allow that.
All right, we'll give her a minute.
Okay.
Okay, I'm on.
Okay, the item's been moved and properly seconded. Please take the roll.
Thank you, President Alvarado.
I actually wanted to pull some things.
From the regular agenda or from the consent calendar?
From the consent calendar.
Okay, Claire, is this the time for her to pull that from the consent, or is that the next item?
This is the time to pull from the consent calendar, and if the movement would entertain an amendment, the director can ask for an amendment at this time.
I'll entertain an amendment.
Does that need to be seconded, Claire?
No, if he accepts it.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Director Stanley. Which item you want to pull?
4B, C, D, F,
G, and on the informational 6A.
All right, does that need a second?
It does.
Okay, second on that, please.
I'll second it.
Who is that? Director Weiner?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that has been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
Thank you, President Alvarado.
No.
Vice President Pettis.
No.
Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Stanley.
Yes.
Thank you, and Director Cepeda.
Sorry, I didn't catch what, is it all, is it pretty much everything off of the consent calendar?
B, C, D, F, and G.
That leaves A, E, H, and I.
B, C, D, F, and G.
Director Cepeda?
I'm gonna go with no.
Okay. Next item, please.
All right. Sorry, just if I may announce, so then the substitute
ahead.
motion fails, and then we're back to the original motion to approve the consent agenda, or the agenda as drafted.
Okay,
So
motion
then
to
it's Director,
motion to approve the agenda as is.
That was my original motion, so I'll motion to approve the agenda as is.
Okay?
right.
Second, please.
Yes. Second.
Okay, that has been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
Thank you, President Alvarado.
Yes.
President Alvarado. Thank
Oh,
you.
yes.
Vice President Pettis.
Yes.
Director Weiner.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Stanley
No.
and Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Items numbers 4A through I are approved by a vote of 4-1.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to stop us. We were approving the agenda. That was the approval of the agenda. Now we move to the consent calendar.
Excuse me. Those for item 2.
Which was the agenda?
Point of order, Mr. President.
Sure, go right ahead.
So we are on we're on the consent calendar now.
No, at this moment, we just passed number 2, and we're going on to public comments.
So, on the, on the agenda, there is an item called consent. Did
That's
we
coming
not just pass item 1, agenda, the order of the agenda and content? And
That is correct.
and did we skip right over the consent calendar item?
No, that's next. Correct, Attorney Collins?
That's correct.
Okay.
We just approved item number 2, and now we should be at item number 3, would be the next item heard.
And before you read the public comments, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Yes, at this time, we do have 2 public comments.
Okay,
And the first public comment is from Joe Lubis, and I will go ahead and read that out.
okay.
Good evening, Board President Alvarado and members of the West County Wastewater District Board of Directors. My name is Joe Lubis. I am a local resident. I am here tonight because I wish to highlight failures that the Pinole Hercules Wastewater Treatment Plant Expansion, a project with a project labor agreement, has had. They are, despite having 10 bidders pre-qualifying for the project and 8 bidders present for the mandatory job block, there were only 2 bids that were received. The bids were 43 million and 49 million, which were 8% and 23% above the engineer's estimate of 39 million. The final completion date was delayed by 9 months. There have been various claims and disputes associated with the project. Also, here are a few ways that we would like to ensure that any PLA that the West County Wastewater District has is fair. Unfair PLAs mandate that apprentices must come from state-approved unions or joint programs. Remove the word joint and allow for all state and federally approved apprentices to be used. Unfair PLAs mandate that all workers, regardless of union status, pay union dues. Please make it so that non-signatory employers aren't required to pay union dues. Unfair PLAs mandate that non-union contractors, once given a contract, have to use workers from a union hall. Workers they are unfamiliar with. Please allow for non-union contractors to use their own workers and apprentices. Unfair PLAs mandate that employees contribute to union health, welfare, and pension plans, regardless of whether or not the workers already have their own plan. Union plans require that its workers stay with the program for a long time, essentially making the non-union workers that contribute ineligible to receive the benefits that they've paid into. A fair PLA would give the employer the option to either contribute to contractor and employers' sponsored benefit plans on behalf of the worker, or contribute to the union's established employee benefit plan on behalf of the worker. Thank you very much. We have public comment number 2 from Mark Myrtle. And it reads the following: Dear West County Wastewater Board of Directors, I am writing you to urge you to reconsider the use of informal bidding for your upcoming project. This is exclusionary bidding practices that only allow union contractors to perform work. Our business bids on projects all over Northern California, including Contra Costa County. We have been in business for 40 years and have done so by delivering a high quality workmanship at a competitive price. The use of informal bidding allows less competition and higher pricing. This has been proven time and time again. Please consider competitive bidding in the work you are proposing for your district. A pre-qualification process can be done to limit unqualified businesses for doing the work. The use of informal bidding practices only allow union contractors, not highly qualified non-union contractors. That concludes the public comments received by the district.
Okay. Does any board member wish to respond to the public comments or the GM? We'll start the way we normally start. Director Stanley?
No comments.
Director Weiner?
I have no comment.
Director Cepeda?
No comment.
Vice President Sutter?
No.
I have no comments either. Next item, please.
Thank you. Item 4 is the consent calendar and consists of sub-items A through I. We have received no requests for public comment on these items.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move we can approve.
Okay, it's been moved. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Okay, item's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Pettis,
Yes.
Director Weiner,
Yes.
Director Stanley,
No.
Director Cepeda. Director Cepeda?
Director Cepeda, did we lose you?
Sorry, the thing wouldn't click. Yes.
Thank you. Items number 4A through I are approved by a vote of 4-1.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is item 5, action calendar. The board will discuss and seek public input before taking action.
First item, please.
First item is A, approve modifications and updates to the human resource analyst job classification. No public comments were received on this item.
Okay, who are we going to hear from this item?
Good evening, President Alvarado. Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
No, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, this is good evening, President Alvarado, Vice President Sudeth, and board members. Justin Lovell, Administrative Services Department Manager. Just want to briefly talk about this item. So we have had a organizational review of the Administrative Services Department this last spring, and one of the findings from the consultant firm was to review the FLSA, which is a Fair Standard Laborers Act, whether the FLSA exempt or not exempt status of the human resources analyst. And so, so we did, based on those that recommendation, I hired a consultant to conduct the FLSA review to determine whether the HR analyst would qualify for exempt status. And so as part of the FLSA review, the consultant reviewed and looked at whether this position qualified under the administrative exemption. And that essentially reviewed looking at what the compensation is for the position. Does the work do essentially non-manual office work that's for the general business operations, and HR is included, human resources is included in that criteria, as well as looking at, does the position exercise discretion and have independent judgment on matters of significance within the organization. And so through that review and interviews with the HR analyst, the consultant came back and said the HR analyst position does qualify for FLSA exempt, and to make that happen, we're recommending making some changes to the job description. And in addition to the changes to the job description, we also conducted a salary survey of similar agencies to look at their HR analyst positions that were also exempt, and to see where our HR analyst salary falls into comparable agencies. And we found that the HR analyst was 6.34% below the median of comparable positions for other agencies. And so we're also recommending that the board approve an amended wage schedule for the HR analyst to adjust the salary up to the median of like positions in comparable agencies. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have about this particular.
All right, we're going to go this time. They're starting with Director Cepeda. Any questions or comments?
No questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Weiner, questions, comments?
I have no comments.
Thank you. Director Stanley.
I have one question and one comment.
Okay.
On the comment side, we always include Dublin, San Ramon, and Central San in our comparisons. And I happen to know that both of those places, it's much more expensive to live. And so it makes sense that their pay scale is 1,000 plus more than our pay scale. And I think we're more comparable to the Union Sanitary and the Delta Diablo, because it's cheaper to live here than it is the other places. And I wanted to know, could you explain, please? It says possession of a California driver's license or possession of the ability and means to travel on a flexible schedule. So if somebody was hired and they didn't have a driver's license and they needed to pop over to the plant or go to a different agency, how does that get accomplished, and do we pay for that?
So typically they would not, depending on the situation, as have to make a caveat, because we didn't want to exclude any candidate just because they may not have a California driver's license. That would preclude them. Obviously, they would not be able to drive, any vehicles, which typically is what other employees would do if they needed to get So we just wanted to make sure that this change in job description for future employees, that it left an option for people, wouldn't exclude somebody just because they didn't have a driver's license. If they did need to get around, that's something we would work on a case-by-case basis, whether they would take, public transportation, or, the car share services, or taxis. We typically wouldn't, we do reimburse people for mileage, if they are traveling on district business. And so that is, an option for them. And it's something that we would arrange, if that happened at the time, but we don't have any instances where that needs to happen right now. So it's just making sure that our job description is open and flexible for
Okay, thank you.
future candidates.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Vice President Sutter, any questions, comments?
Just one based on what you just said, but if that's a necessity for the job, because typically you don't change those type of requirements if they are a material aspect of the duty. If it's not a material aspect of the duties, I understand that. Typically, the FLSA requires that it's a requirement. If it's a material aspect of the duties of the job, then you can make it a requirement of the job that they have to have a driver's license. But so that if you need them to be able to drive, to get around as a material aspect of the job, then you need them to have a license, right?
Right.
Because if they have to operate a forklift or they have to drive from place to place, it's not something that you can take away. So I'm just wondering, is there a material aspect of these jobs?
Of this particular position, there is not. There are other positions that we do require and need to have, somebody would need to have a driver's license. This one is not
All right.
required along that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter. If I have no questions, can I get a motion to approve action item 5A?
Sure. So moved.
Item's been moved. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, item's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Thank you, President Alvarado.
Yes.
Vice President Sutter,
Yes.
Director Weiner,
Yes.
Director Stanley,
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 5A is approved.
Okay, next item, please.
Thank you. Next item is item 5B. That's to authorize the general manager to amend the agreement with Claire Computer Solutions for an additional amount of $300,000 for a total not to exceed amount of $680,000. No public
Okay.
comments were received on this item.
All right, thank you. Who are we hearing from on staff on this?
So Justin is going to just give you a brief overview, but I did want to just mention that we did send out earlier today sort of some supplemental information to the board on this item. Justin will highlight those in his update, but I just wanted to mention that before he started.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can I just move this item?
Sure, I don't see why not. I mean,
I'd like to move. I'd like to move the item.
Still have to ask directors if they have questions on the matter.
That's fine. I'd like to move the item.
Okay. So the item's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the item's been moved and seconded. Now let's go back to questions, comments. And let's start with Director Stanley this time. I'm sorry, not questions and comments. Let's go back to Justin. We forgot all about him.
Just briefly, if there's, I'm happy to answer any specific questions about the information provided.
Give us the short version because.
Sure. So the 1 minute version is, so we've been working with Claire Computers. They were selected through an RFP process in early 2019. They have been providing IT services for the district since April of 2019. And when they came in, they did an assessment of all our network and systems and software, and they had several recommendations. When I started, I started getting more involved with the IT services. I brought in a third party just to review those recommendations and looking at what our needs are for the future for the district. And so based on the third party analysis, talking with staff, we came up with several items that we want to address. A lot of it is related to monitoring all of our systems, cybersecurity, security awareness training, and additional on-site support as needed with the computers. And so when we put all those additional needs together, that we need approximately $300,000 for the remainder of the term for Claire to really provide us the essential IT services that we're looking for.
Is that it, Justin?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay. So questions, comments, Director Stanley?
Yes, at the most recent mayor's conference, the Contra Costa Library gave an excellent presentation on what they had to do when they had a ransom attack. And I was wondering, do we have insurance that covers all the recovery costs if we get attacked?
I can address that briefly. We do have a insurance related to the cybersecurity and if we are attacked. I do not know off the top of my head what level of coverage. It would really depend on the damage. I'd have to look into it a little bit more. We are part of the pool insurance for that type of coverage.
Okay. Well, the library system volunteered to share whatever they learned. And one of the things is that it was pretty expensive, and not only did they have to recover, but then they had a second attack, and they had to do that too. And what it generated was a checkoff list of what to do if you have an attack like that, and some training for staff, and things like write down all the phone numbers that you're going to need and things like that. But I'm just throwing out there for your own information that maybe you want to know and maybe you don't.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Director Weiner?
Yes, I also attended that mayor's conference, and they said that it's not a matter of if we will suffer a ransomware cyber attack, but when. And so we might want to revisit this contract and be sure that we have enough money to protect ourselves. And I have a full report that I was saving for meetings reports, and I can also send that to you.
Okay.
I'm happy to mention, if I may, that we do have a $2 million limit of liability on cyber. So we do have insurance for cyber breaches through CSRMA, and with a $50,000 retention.
Thank you for that. Director Cepeda?
Yeah, I have a question in regards to the amount. Is this going to be an annual amount going forward? Is this what we should expect, or is this a one-time cost due to COVID?
So this amount is to get us through the term of the agreement, which is through February of 2022. So this will be about 17 more months. So on an annualized basis, I would expect going forward, we would be needing to spend around $220,000 to $250,000 a year for IT services.
Okay, so for the next contract, we're going to be looking at something similar as this, to not exceed of $1 million or so?
Right, depending on the term of how long the contract would be, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter?
No.
I have no questions or comments either. So this item's already been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
Thank you, President Alvarado.
Yes.
Vice President Sutter.
Yes.
Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Stanley.
Yes.
Thank you, Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 5B is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is item 5C, and that is to authorize the general manager to execute an agreement with APB General Engineering for the 3.1 priority pipes project in the amount as shown on the agenda. No public comments were received for this item.
Okay, do we have any comments or questions? We'll start with Director Weiner. Director Cepeda. My bad.
Questions or comments at this time?
Okay, Director Weiner.
I have a very short comment, which is we still haven't gotten our PLA. And this is over $1 million contract. I'd also, for the future, just to make it simpler for my simple mind, if we could have a map showing when we approve the next 3.1 round, just a map. I found it in the bid, which would be sufficient. I like that map where it showed location of pipes, just so I can keep in mind where we are working and where we've gotten to in our big plan. And that's all I have to comment.
All right, thank you, Director Weiner. Director Stanley.
I have no questions.
All right, Vice President Sutter.
No, I just want to move the item.
Okay, item's been moved. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All right, item's been moved and seconded, and I have no comments, so please take the roll.
Thank you, President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Sutter.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Weiner
Yes.
and Director Stanley
Yes.
and Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 5C is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, item number 6, next item.
Next item is 6A, and that's an information report on the critical digester repairs and sludge dewatering project.
All right, who's giving us a report on this?
So Aaron is going to just give you a brief, overview of the issues in the report.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, President Alvarado, board members. We've been before you 3 times since late last year regarding problems and challenges with the digester system. Most recently on July 15th, shortly after removing the second and the remaining digester from service and requesting approval for funds to conduct a temporary dewatering project while staff and consultants completed the digester assessment. Excuse me. At that time, we showed you pictures of the digester components highlighting the issues related to the operational reliability and safety problems. Staff committed to return after the digester assessment was complete to provide an update, and that's why we're here tonight. Carollo engineers submitted their final treatment plant digester system evaluation report on August 28th of this year, which supports the preliminary findings indicating that the safety, condition, and reliability of the system is such that it needs to be completely rehabilitated or replaced, not or replaced. We originally worked on the assumption that digesters could be repaired and safely brought back online in 3 to 6 months with a baseline level of repair work. That alternative has unfortunately been ruled out, and there are now less than 3 months remaining on the 6-month contract that we let with Synagro in the beginning of July. In the next 2 weeks, an RFP for dewatering services will be issued, and several factors we're hoping will allow for reduced costs of a longer-term dewatering project. And those are as follows: competition, project length. We expect the project to be longer in duration while we either rehab or replace the digesters. There are alternative technologies available, and we also may be able to produce a different quality sludge, a better quality sludge, where we can land apply it, which would be a cheaper alternative. So we're going to be looking at those during the RFP process. The length of the extended dewatering project will likely be from 2 to 3 years. And as I mentioned, the options and alternatives for continued dewatering will be evaluated when the results of the upcoming RFP come back. And we'll bring the item back to you probably sometime in November after the RFP is completed, and provide you more information, on the alternatives for ongoing dewatering operations when they're more clearly understood. And I just wanted to note in closing that, this dewatering and solids, biosolids treating and disposal, process is typically the most, or one of the most expensive endeavors in municipal wastewater operations. So really that's what we're looking at. And really that's the summary of the report. We'll be back to you in a month and a half or so, and happy to take any questions.
All right, does any board member have questions or comments on this? We'll start this time with Director Cepeda.
No. Thank you. Thank you, Aaron, for that report.
All right, thank you, Director Cepeda. Director Weiner, questions, comments?
Yikes. And then some questions.
Right ahead.
Does this equipment failure create additional greenhouse gases? You mentioned the NG project. Does the failure of both our digesters add to the cost of the NG project? Does it complicate the work? And finally, is there any potential to bring a new digester online in an accelerated manner?
So answer to the first question, if I can remember them all. It actually does not contribute to greenhouse gases, because rather than digesting the sludge, flaring the gas, and then putting the sludge into the lagoons, basically we're taking it right out of the process right now, dewatering it, and then burying it in a landfill. Those landfills have gas and methane gas, capture and treatment systems. So that's the answer to number one. Number two, NG's project includes replacement digesters. But even with that, we just had discussions today about potentially pursuing alternatives. And I don't want to get too much into the details, but that's something that we talked about. And there are some other options, and it could be that we might look at buying our own belt press and doing the dewatering ourselves. That's something that would be very complex, and again, it would take probably a year or more, but it's an alternative that we'll look at. And then the third question, I'm blanking on the third question, Director Weiner.
Is there any potential to bring a new digester online in an accelerated manner?
Yeah, so I think I kind of answered it. We're going to look at what our options are. The digester system, the digester replacement project is in the NG bundle of projects, but I think what we're going to need to do is look at whether there's an alternative to fast track that, pull it out and do it as an independent project. But again, that's very complicated, and there's a lot of things that we'd have to do, primarily because it would impact NG's project, and the whole planning aspect of that would have to be realigned. So it would just be complicated, but we'll look at it.
And I guess I did want to ask one more question. Is the failure related to lack of maintenance, or is it just that they're 50 years old and that's it?
It's the latter. It's just 50 plus years old is beyond the useful life, and really that was the upshot of most of Carollo's report.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Stanley, questions, comments?
Yes, please. So, Aaron, in your talks with NG, are we talking about what kind of product we want to end up at the end of the process, or are we only talking about this segment as far as, what you're trying to decide right now?
The former. We are focused on a high-class biosolids you know, that in the best case, best world scenario, we could land apply. That answer?
Well, yes. And so then my follow-up question is can we sometime in the near future have a chat at the global warming committee so that we can talk about this for just a few minutes?
Yes,
This particular topic.
the NG item in particular, Director Stanley?
No, you finished. What is desired in the finished product?
Okay, sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Stanley. Vice President Sutter.
No.
No questions? I have none either. Okay, so next item, please.
Next item is item 7A, and those are reports from staff, the general manager, and general counsel.
All right, General Manager.
Yes, so Justin has a brief update, but I also just quickly wanted to mention that we did release our latest edition of our community newsletter, The Lateral. It is posted on our website. It's posted on Nextdoor, Facebook, LinkedIn, and everyone should have received an email. But if you didn't, again, please take some time to check it out. I think it's a really great way for us to connect with the community and keep them updated on what we're doing as an organization. And just wanted to remind everyone of that. And I know Justin has, as I said, a brief something he wants to share with you, and Claire does as well. So I'll hand that off to Justin to start.
There we go. Thank you, Lisa. I just wanted to share with you that we partnered with the Contra Costa County Elections Division, and we have a ballot box placed at the Hilltop office that is now accepting ballots from, it started at 8 a.m. on Monday, October 5th through 8 p.m. on election night, November 3rd. And the county elections will come in every few days. We'll come and collect all the ballots that they've received. So I just want to let you know that this is now an option in the area that people can drop off their ballots at our offices.
Very cool.
Justin, is that it?
That is all. Thank you.
Okay. General Counsel, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's nice to be with you for my first meeting. Thank you. I wanted to just briefly mention we're in October, which means that the legislative session has ended for the year in Sacramento. As you probably know, one item that was signed into law at the end of September was a bill called AB 992, and that was a law that dealt with the Brown Act and social media. As you all know, a serial meeting is prohibited by the Brown Act, and that's when the meeting is not called, noticed and called in the way that tonight's meeting was, but it can occur over social media. And so AB 992 provides some guidance. I just wanted to let you know that I will be sending you a very brief one-page memo and some supplemental information so that if you do engage in social media, and some of your other board members do as well, just a very basic way to avoid violating the Brown Act if you are participating in social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Nextdoor or other things like that. The bottom line is board members can comment or post icons. Icons are actually part of the bill in response to members of the public, but board members should not comment directly or indirectly on a comment of a fellow board member. So if you keep that in mind, just comment on non-board members' items, you should hopefully be in compliance with the Brown Act. But I'll circulate that to all of you so you can take a look in case you do use social media, and hopefully it will be easy to follow. That's all I had.
All right, thank you, General Counsel. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Thank you. Next item is matters from members of the board. That's item A, meeting reports, reports on committee activities, conferences, seminars, and meetings pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
All right, we'll start with Director Stanley. Director Stanley? All right, we'll come back to Director Weiner.
Yes, I attended the mayor's conference, and the meeting opened with a special report on the Contra Costa County's library's experience with ransomware cyber attack. In this attack, servers are encrypted by a viral program that was inserted into the system. The programs often sit in the system for long periods of time and monitor the system and send data to an outside server. This data is used to breach security and insert encryption programs onto the many servers. These programs are often loaded onto backups, sitting quietly and reinstalled during disk recovery after the attack. The takeaway was to have IT insurance, have a plan including a public information plan, a recovery plan, and a continuity of service plan. Designate who will be in charge of the recovery, who is in charge overall, add ransomware to the risk management plan, have staff training regarding security and opening email from unknown sources. The county recommended Cisco systems for recovery, post-mortem investigation, and virus cleaning. Store all important phone numbers in your phone and not on servers. Immediately start documenting everything for cyber attack insurance. Have dual factor security, separate corporate and public access networks. The lawyers need to study the laws around these incidents. The county decided not to contact the ransomware creators to pay for recovery keys. They go after backups, and the county used Rubrik, it's a brand name, to store their backups in the cloud. And the presentation was by Melinda Cervantes, Allison McKee, and Mark Scher, and they encouraged the attendees to contact them for more information. Besides the presentation, the county is going to be required by regional law to add housing over the next till 2050. So there will be required construction by state law, and is currently being assigned their 5-year targets. Measure X was promoted. Website supportlocalrecovery.org from the League of California Cities was promoted for COVID community recovery aid. That's my report from the mayor's conference.
Anything further, Director Weiner?
Nope, I have no other report.
All right, Director Cepeda.
No reports from me, thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back to Director Stanley.
Hi, sorry about that. I was chattering away and didn't realize you couldn't hear me. This is for maybe for Andrew and Aaron. I was at the North Richmond MAC meeting last night, and there is a presentation by a couple of different organizations, one of which was flood control, and it talked about the Bay Trail. And I just wanted to let y'all know that maybe the next time you have a levy meeting, you might ask the flood control people if there's any conflicts with what they're doing and what we're planning. And other than that, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Vice President Sudduth, any report?
Just a couple of things.
Go right
I
ahead.
attended a webinar for AB 992 Add to 4, and so there, the state is giving it. Yesterday there was a webinar by Aqua on water rights for the Central Valley. So those of you who wasn't able to attend it, it was a good one. It was for 100 communities in California that are left with tainted water, and it was a pretty good one. So if you're not checking out some of the webinars that Aqua is hosting, you should, because he was talking about the TCPs that are in our running water. And most of them, of course, are in Central Valley, but there are some that are up here in Northern California. And some of the strategies that we're using to deal with the TCP and PFAS that are in our running water, and some that are coming through the wastewater treatment plants that are not necessarily up to code and up to date, that we're dealing with. There's some state and federal advocacy programs. We were dealing with those today in a CSTA meeting that I was in. The one that I'm most interested in is the fact that the FAST Act was not renewed yet. It's was supposed to be, it expired at the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, and which is the Infrastructure Act, for those of you who don't know, which does affect us, because if we're going after any money, any federal grants or monies, and that it was supposed to be replaced by the Invest Act, which is a huge part of HR 12. And right now it looks like they're going to renew for another 12 months. It came out of the House, but the Senate is refusing to do anything, to pass anything. So it looks like they may renew the FAST Act itself for another year, and while they try and work this out. So right now we're on standby. Our lobbyists in my office are going to let us know what's happening with it. So I'll let you know when I know. But we should all be paying attention to that, because any monies that are going to come to water and wastewater and any type of infrastructure aid is going to come out of that budget. So that's what I've been doing.
All right, thank you, Vice President Sutter. I have nothing to report here, so next item, please.
Thank you. Next item is item 8B, good of the order. Report on events and activities which may be of interest to members of the board and community members.
All right, let's start with Director Cepeda this time.
The biggest thing is to vote. So thank you so much for putting a ballot drop-off box. I was super excited. I got a picture earlier this morning of somebody dropping off their ballot with our name in the background. That was very cool for us to be able to participate in that process. This is a super crucial election, and I hope that everybody goes out there and starts voting. And you can remember, you can track your ballot online if you want to see where it is once you drop it off. And our office is one location, so that is very, very cool that the agency has done that. So thank you for that. The other thing I just want to, I'm pretty sure you all have realized it, but just in case, we have a woman, female general counsel, and has been the first female general counsel that I believe in maybe about 40 years or so of the agency. So kudos to the agency for moving us in this new direction. So thank you. That is it. Thank you, Mr. President. And welcome, Claire.
Thank you, Director Cepeda. Director Weiner.
I have no report.
Okay, thank you. Director Stanley.
I'm echoing Director Cepeda. Wow, 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 how cool is that to have a voting thing? And wow, 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 how cool is it to have a female general counsel? So thank you.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Vice President Sutter.
Yeah, we have an election coming up. That's all I know. And I've been spending the last week, I still don't have a voice, but the little bit that I do have, I've been doing a lot of presentations on the propositions. I have 3 more this week. So if you need some help on what the propositions mean, I'm just doing pro and con. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. One position. And you can guess which one that is. but I'm doing, that is what I'm doing. So anybody interested in, or you know somebody who needs help in figuring that out, or somebody who needs help in just voting or where to vote, now we can tell them to come to Waste County to drop off their ballots. I think that's great. And so I will share that. And bienvenidos, Miss Claire. Welcome. Um, we hope we make it not too hard for you. Welcome to our world. And bienvenidos, Miss Brenda. Nice to have you too. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter. If I too want to say, this is probably the most important election out there. So obviously I can't tell you who to vote for, but get out there and vote, vote, vote. Get people to register to vote. And recently the president decided that the new Stimulus Care Act is not really needed till after the election. So there is a little program in San Pablo where I think they have about $100,000 left, and it's for rental assistance, and it's also for utility assistance. So if you know anybody that lives in San Pablo that needs help, please have them email me and I will forward it to my wife, who is the vice mayor of San Pablo, and she will get it to staff to get your information processed. It's important because these funds are going to be critical now that there's not going to be any more money going out there till after election day, and who knows, maybe longer, because you know, the Senate is still held hostage. Even if they lose the Senate and the presidency, it's still going to be held hostage, and nothing's really going to happen probably till January. So like I said, get out there and vote. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Thank you. Next item is item 8C, and that's future agenda items.
All right, let's start with Director Stanley this time.
Hi, since we're spending $230,000 a month to smush our poop, can we get a monthly tally of, we usually somewhere at the end of our budget we have like 18 million surplus, and so can we get a tally monthly on where we're at against that amount of money so we can keep track?
Okay. That sounds to me like an information item.
Yeah, Director Stanley, I can follow up with you after the meeting. I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. And just to clarify, we do not have $18 million surplus at the end of each year. So, but I could follow up with you to understand better what you're looking for.
Okay.
All right, that would be greatly appreciated. Director Weiner.
Yes, I would like to get a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy in the hopper going forward. I would like the board to work on that. Maybe get some presentations on that. I would like to get that on the agenda.
All right, so General Counsel, can you review with us the process of getting something on the agenda, just for edification?
Sure. I'm going to pull up our board policies, if you don't mind.
Right ahead.
This would have been easier if I had them at my fingertips. I apologize.
Oh, it's okay.
So my understanding is under the board procedures, it does require a vote in order to place it on the upcoming agenda.
Okay. So at this point,
but I would mention that typically a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy is something that requires a fair amount of work to obviously begin and start the work on. So I guess the question would be to have to bring back an agenda item about basic policy principles, because I'm assuming that that would be something that the agency would like to workshop.
Director Weiner, is that sufficient for you, or?
Yes, however we begin, I would like to begin.
Okay, so do we need a motion for that, attorney?
For right now, I would recommend, I don't know that a vote is needed. You've directed staff, and we can take that back and look at what it will take to bring forward a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy and report that at a later agenda. Would that be sufficient?
Yes. Director Weiner?
I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay, very good.
Okay, noted.
Is that it, Director Weiner?
That's the only thing I have.
Okay, thank you. Director Cepeda?
It's more of an ask, and at least and we had chatted about this before too, so and maybe I might have missed it, but just in case, want to put it out there again, see if we can do a press release about having our first female general counsel in, like, again, over 40 years or so. It kind of goes with what Director Wiener was saying as well, and diversity and inclusion, and tying it all into that. And Brenda, welcome as well. I sent you an email earlier, so I didn't welcome you on Zoom, but welcome now as well. But again, just for the general counsel, it's the first time that we've had a female in many, many years. So I think that's a great step in the right direction. So not an agenda item, but maybe just as a FYI, see if we can get something going now that we've made it official.
Okay,
Yeah. I
Thank you.
can talk to you offline, Director Cepeda, as well.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Vice President Sutter?
I want to be clear on what's being asked. So Director Wiener, are you asking for diversity and inclusion, a DEI policy or a program?
Policy. I mean, yeah, policy.
Because those are two different things.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm asking because we're working on that at work, and when somebody brought that to me to ask me about it, because this is what I do, and those are two different things. Because you can have a policy, but unless it's embedded in a program that's enacted throughout the district, it really doesn't matter. So I think what you need, you might have a policy, but I think it has to be a program that the district is going to carry out. That's just my suggestion to what it is that you're really seeking.
Well,
So
I want to begin.
that's just my suggestion.
If you want in addition to the policy, if we need a program, then I think that could be part of the discussion. I would like to get going on that thing, and if it has to be implemented, if the policy has to be implemented through a program, that
Yeah.
is perfectly fine with me.
So that's what I'm trying to gather, because I think that's what you're asking. So I'm just trying to help you with the words, because a lot of people just say a policy and it goes in a drawer somewhere, and then you never get what it is you're trying to get to in the end result. You see what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that's what I'm trying to.
My thinking on the matter is that it's not going to be, it's not just going to be made up. We're going to have to think about it, discuss it, find out what it really means. What are these policies look like elsewhere? So I'm looking at it as a process that's going to take time. I'm not looking for staff to come up with a policy and we just go with that. I'm looking for some discussion and make sure that it has some teeth in it and that it works. So I don't have a plan. I just want to start the discussion is basically why
Yeah. So
get that on the agenda.
Well, that's
Yeah,
what we're doing, so.
yeah. So that's why I wanted to just amend it, if you don't mind, to say a policy and a program,
That's
so they can implement it. And the other thing is that Director Zepeda, if I can friendly amend what you asked for, I think that the press release should lead with General Counsel Collins and Hanson Bridget being appointed as the General Counsel
and then mention that she's the first woman. I don't think I would leave with, oh, we have the first woman. I think that Hanson Bridget was chosen because of their skill and their ability to lead this district as the general counsel. And we can talk about her being our first woman general counsel. This is my gentle correction when you talk about diversity and inclusion. Is saying that because they were very persuasive about the diversity of their firm, and um, not just women, but everything else that they brought to the table. So I would want that to come out in the press release, that they just weren't chosen just because it was going to be a woman as the general counsel, but the whole package. So I would want that to come out in the press release, and this is my small bit to add to that.
Sounds good. Sounds like you guys need to work with Lisa to make sure that that happens. Is that it, Vice President Sutter?
Yes, and it's my daughter's birthday today, and you guys are keeping me from it.
Well, happy birthday. And my final comment before I adjourn is that we just missed the debate, so I'd suggest you get on there and watch it after the show. Finally, I want to once again welcome Claire and Brenda to our staff. It's a pleasure to have you both, and I look great forward to working with both of you. So this meeting is now adjourned, and I'm going to ask Claire to take us to the next meeting, closed session item we have to discuss.